You're watching memorable entertainment television. MeTV Tri-State.
Broke the story on local homestead tax credit fiasco. Expose the Evansville Redevelopment Commission excessive spending habits.
Your community watchdog. CityCountyObserver.com is your online community newspaper dedicated to the progress of Evansville and Vanderburgh County. We're a nonpartisan publication providing insight into political issues and events that shape our community. We are a watchdog for you, the citizen. Check us out online, city-countyobserver.com. That's city-countyobserver.com.
Tri-State Voices, an open discussion with area leaders on issues affecting communities throughout the Tri-State. Now, here's your host, Mike Woods.
Good morning. Welcome to Tri-State Voices. Tri-State Voices is jointly sponsored by the City County Observer, WTSN, and my office, Woods & Woods. I'm your host, Mike Woods. Every week, Tri-State Voices talks to a community leader about issues that are important to all of us. Today, we're honored to have Tony Goben. Tony is the District 76 House of Representatives candidate. He's currently a senior case manager at the Knight Township's office. In 2012, he was the Township Employee of the Year, which is really a heck of an honor when you consider there's over 1,000 townships in Indiana. He donates much of his time to many, many different charitable organizations, especially Albion Fellows Bacon Center. Tony, when I was reading some of your campaign literature and things, you said you were the voice of the voiceless.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for having me here.
My pleasure.
Voice of the voiceless. What that means to me is this. As you stated before, I am a senior case manager at the Knight Township Trustee's office. A lot of times what happens is we get people in who are just trying to meet the basic necessities of life. What that means is, they can't cover their electric, they can't cover their water bill, they can't cover their rent, they have no food in their house. Those are the people that have no voice in the State House. That's what I want to be, their voice. Previously, my employment was at the Vanderburgh County Drug Court, where I saw people, battling addiction, saw people struggling to keep their employment, to keep their families together, things like that. So those as well, they have no voice. So I want to be their voice as well. We tend to forget so much of the population, unfortunately, and I want to be there for them.
It seems like we need to do more to take people who are on the margins of life and get them to a stabilized situation where they can be working and become productive citizens.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing we have to do. We have to provide and we have to produce more high-paying jobs. I think the state of Indiana has not done a great job at doing that. We're adding new jobs every day. You drive down Greenville Road, you drive out Pearl Drive, you drive out these areas that are expanding. They're all service industry jobs. They're all minimum wage jobs. We're expanding those jobs, but we're not getting into the technical jobs. We're not getting into the more professional jobs. That's where we need to focus on, I believe.
Okay, well, let's talk about that a little. I know you've mentioned before that we're not spending enough on infrastructure, and without an appropriate infrastructure, you're not going to have jobs.
Oh, absolutely. That's one thing that we have to do. We have to make sure that we are spending on infrastructure to keep not only to keep our roads safe and bridges safe, but to produce more jobs. Recently, the American Society of Civil Engineers ranked Indiana with a D. It means we have deficient roads. We have deficient bridges. Over 21%, I believe it is, of bridges are either functionally, or let me say this: they're either functionally unable to carry the loads they're carrying, or they're just obsolete, and that's going to be a danger to some people in the future. What we need to be doing is taking that money that we have in this $2 billion surplus that the governor keeps crowing about, and a lot of the other legislators keep crowing about, and throw some of that money at this infrastructure that needs to be repaired.
1 out of 5 bridges, that strikes me as a terrible amount when you consider if you don't have a plan over the next 5-8 years to fix those, where are we going?
Absolutely right. Where are we going? That's the issue. we have no plan. I mean, this past legislature put a little money into it, but not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. You know, we've got to make sure that something doesn't happen in the state of Indiana that happened in Minneapolis several years ago, where the interstate just collapsed, the bridge just collapsed. That's a risk of life, human life. But like I said, it's a two-way street, because not only does it help that way, it also can produce jobs. And that's what we need to have. We need to have skilled labor working. We need to have a workforce that will be able to get this done. And that's what we can produce if we invest that money.
You know, several of the people that I've interviewed over the past few months talked about how in some cases we're producing too many people with the four-year college degree, but we're not getting enough people that are the technician society. They just know how to fix stuff, especially robotics.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, that's what I said before about the technical side. We need to be making sure that our students are prepared for the 21st century. Unfortunately, right now, most schools are just so concentrated on the I-step that other things are lacking. We are losing out. We need to be prepared to give these students the tools they need to survive once they get out. We need to be able to send them to four-year colleges. We need to send them to technical schools. We need to send them to academies that will teach them robotics and engineering and computer drafting, things like that. These are all so important, and we're just not doing it enough.
And maybe it's just my own personal observations, but I see a lot of young people getting out of college who are struggling to find jobs.
Right.
But I almost never see anybody that's getting these technical degrees that are really, like robotics we mentioned a minute ago.
Right.
They all seem to be able to find good jobs.
Well, and the problem there is, you know, I think that's kind of a problem of the past. You know, we want our kids to go to college more than anything. We want them to go out, get a four-year degree in a field where they think they can make money in. But you know, those jobs are unfortunately drying up. They're not in existence anymore. But yet, you know, they're still going through these four-year colleges, which is wonderful. There are a lot of degrees out there available to do this, but we do need to focus more on technical schools and academies of science and industry that we're just not doing right now.
Yeah, it's almost like in the education system right now, they look at some of the technical degrees as where the not the best students go or something. It seems to me that's really kind of backwards. It is,
and that goes back again to history. You know, you almost hate to say this, but at a certain point in time here in Evansville, students went over to technical school. I believe it was Henry Reese at the time. Those are the students that they thought didn't have a chance or were unable to go to college. Now it should be on an equal playing field. We should be able to take these technical schools. We have a wonderful technical school out on Lynch Road, and it's being underutilized as far as I'm concerned. We need to focus sending more kids out there than we do to a lot of the other schools, a lot of the community colleges and things like that. Community colleges are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but we need to focus on the future. The future is in robotics, the future is in computers, the future is in engineering, things like those degrees. And we're just simply not getting enough of them.
We take when we were kids, people could work on their own car, they could work on their own furnace and things like that. Now it's all computerized. You can't. I mean, you simply can't.
You cannot, absolutely can't. And those are the type of skills that they teach at those academies. They teach those computer skills where they can go in and work on vehicles with computers, go in and work on their furnace with computers, go in and work on basically anything, even down to the simple, the most simple items in your house. You know, those things are all computerized. There's computer chips in everything now. And we need to make sure that we are preparing our students, our children, to meet that in the future.
You told me that if you get on the, if you win this election, that one of the committees you want to get on is the Family Services Committee.
Right.
Explain to me why you'd like to be on that committee.
Well, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, when we're talking about the voice for the voiceless, these people are being overlooked. They're being overlooked simply for the fact that they have no lobbyists. There's no lobbying firms out there for the poor. There's no lobbying firms out there for drug addicts. There's no lobbying firms out there for single moms. We need to make sure that this population is looked after as well. I mean, I know that a lot of people would disagree with me as far as some of the people that I've had the fortune to work with who are battling addictions, but at some point they have to become productive members of society. We need to make sure that they are becoming productive members of society, and they're falling through the cracks on a daily basis. And these people, they have no one there behind them. They don't have anyone to have their back. That's what I want to do. I want to have their back.
When I was with the prosecutor's office, I saw a lot of people that would go off to prison, and you look at them and you think, what a shame. I mean, their main problem is simply drug addicts,
Sure.
drug addiction. They haven't committed any crime other than simply drugs. They've not stolen anybody, they've not stolen anything, they've not assaulted anybody, anything like that. And you look and you think, wow, if you could put them in a program, just suppose the program would cost $10,000 or $15,000 to dry them out if it worked. You get somebody working, it doesn't take very long, they pay $10,000 or $15,000 in income taxes,
Right.
and then to incarcerate somebody, it's $25,000, $30,000 a year at the least.
Right.
So it's kind of a shame to reduce human lives to dollars and cents.
Right.
But to be blunt, you can make your money back pretty quick.
Absolutely, and the problem there is we're so quick to want to throw people in jail, unfortunately, and the fact of the matter is these people have families too. A lot of them have children that are going to end up in orphanages, or going to end up basically in family services, period. It's going to cost us a whole heck of a lot more than the $25,000 to $30,000 it takes just to keep them locked up. It's going to cost us money to help provide for those children, help provide for their families. So, we're losing a heck of a lot more money than the $25,000 to $30,000. As far as the programs go, absolutely. Previously I worked at the Vanderbilt County Drug, and I saw people who struggled on a daily basis with that addiction. They've struggled to keep their families. They've struggled to keep their jobs. But it's doable. I've seen so many success stories come out of that. I think if you talk to Judge Trockman or anyone who is with that program, will tell you that there are a lot of success stories that don't get publicized. And unfortunately, we always tend to see the bad sides of drug addiction. We hear about the meth lab bus. We hear about, the person who's transporting the marijuana or coke or whatever. But we never hear the success stories. But they're out there. We have to dig them out. We have to make sure that there's more of those success stories, and it's possible. Doesn't mean basically spending more money. Just like you said, we're saving money by not sending these people to prison, but by rehabilitating them, and that's what we need to be sure that we're doing. Otherwise, we're just going to end up with a whole generation of prisoners, and that's where I think we're heading right now.
You mentioned something I think it's worth talking to our viewers about they may not be aware of. You mentioned Judge Trockman's drug court, and for those of you not familiar with it, it's kind of a specialized court where people with drug charges can go, and they approach it, I guess you'd say, more as a medical problem than a legal problem.
Right.
It's a very strict court. It's tough to make your way out of that. You're going to have to follow all their guidelines. It's really tough. But they have really had a pretty good success rate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Of getting people off dope, out of prison, back to work.
Yeah, their recidivism level is wonderful as far as that program goes. Like I said, I've seen so many success stories come out of that. I've seen families get reunited because they went through that program and are now actively a functional member of society. They're contributing, they're paying taxes, they're going out and working every single day. They are taking care of their families, and that's the type of things that we need.
And just to be clear, they can't get on the drug court program if they're a dangerous person.
That's
they're being
correct.
charged with some violent crime like
That's
rape,
correct.
something like that. It's pretty much people who the only crime is drugs, right?
Right, absolutely right. Yeah, they don't accept people who've had a violent past and are a threat to public safety. They will not accept those, no.
Yeah. Now, one of the other committees you said you'd like to be on is the Judiciary Committee.
Right.
Why would you like to be on the Judiciary Committee?
There again, that's because of my time at the drug court. I saw people, again, succeed, and I think we have a problem here in Indiana. We have a problem with the legislature in Indiana as far as what they're doing. We see these people as criminals, period. We see these people as drains on society. They're not. They are criminals, yes. Technically, they broke the law, absolutely. Are they career criminals? No. In the most cases, absolutely not. They made a few mistakes. And, I'm all about giving someone a second chance. And that's what I think that we need to be sure that we're looking after. We need to make sure that we're giving them second chances. We need to make sure that we're going out and actively trying to rehabilitate these people rather than waiting for them to come to us.
I'm a lawyer, and so obviously the state of the judiciary is really important to me.
Right.
When a few weeks ago, I had an old friend on here, Judge Shively, and he talked some about the nonpartisan election of judges in Vanderburgh County, and I think he said there was one other county somewhere up north that has nonpartisan judicial elections. How do you feel about those?
I think it's a great idea. I think, when you start putting judges into a column with a D behind their name or a column with an R behind their name, politics gets involved. That's an area that politics should not get involved in. It's totally, those are unbiased people. They have to be, by profession. When you're a judge, you're unbiased, period. When you start putting a D behind your name or an R behind your name, you're going to have to start showing a little bias here or there to keep your base happy. With judges, you don't have to worry about that. And the same with the school board as well. They're nonpartisan. So I'm all for keeping those races nonpartisan because we just don't need politics in the mix there, period.
Really what that would be doing is making our trial judges selected and elected in the same way that our Court of Appeals and Supreme Court justices are. Both of those, it's the governor appoints and then they're up for a retention vote.
Right.
Whereas with our nonpartisan, they could still be opposed, but it's just not, your opposition's not going to be Democrat or Republican.
Right.
They just put everybody's names on a ballot, and most people that go to vote don't know if the judge used to be a Democrat or used to be a Republican.
No, and that's, there again, when you do label yourself as a D or an R, Democrat or Republican, you're going to have to make that base happy. Whether it's a Republican base where you want to see more prosecutions, more jail time, things like that, and they're going to have to keep their base happy. They're going to have to go out and show them, their Republican voters, that they are doing these things. If you're nonpartisan, you just follow the letter of the law as it states, period, and that's the way it should be, as far as I'm concerned.
I tell you, the other thing I'd really like about changing to that system is in some of these counties that still have the old partisan Republican-Democrat system, you have one year where one party or the other has a landslide, and once in a while when you have those landslides, you have some really good people thrown out and some idiots put in office.
Yeah.
And that's happened with both political parties.
Absolutely.
Whereas with the nonpartisan, you just look at that and it's just the judge's name. And if, a lot of times if people don't know what they're anything about, they simply don't vote. Whereas you have the partisan, somebody goes up there and they vote a straight ticket one way or the other, that person just got to vote and they don't know anything about them.
Absolutely right. And that unfortunately, like you said, happens all the time. It happened in the office that I work at several years ago. When the Knight Township trustee was elected, it was basically a year where a lot of people voted straight ticket. And those people went in and voted straight ticket and got a trustee that ended up spending time in prison. Unfortunately now we've turned that office around. Things are going great with the trustee that we have now, Catherine Martin. She's doing an amazing job. that office has completely did a 180. We're operating in the black now, and things are going great. We're able to provide assistance that's needed, and we're able to pay our bills. So it's done a complete major overhaul and a complete turnaround, and I'm proud to be a part of that office.
Well, I think everybody feels like the Knight Township Trustees office done a really good job, you and Catherine and everybody else, because you guys really inherited a mess. And that's a really good example of somebody that's blatantly unqualified
Absolutely.
winning just because it was a landslide year.
Right, absolutely right.
I mean, Catherine's predecessor was unqualified right out of the gate.
Oh, yeah, and she couldn't even be bonded right out of the gate. And, you know, that should have threw up a red flag at the time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it led into some felonious activity, unfortunately. But like I said, things are turning around now. That's a chapter in the past, and we'll move forward.
The state governments have for many, many years complained that the federal government puts mandates on the states, but doesn't give them the money. Tells them you have to do something, but not going to tell you how to pay for it.
Right.
Is the criticism that some people are making of the state, that that's what the state's doing to local governments, is that a justified criticism?
I believe so. You know, just as an example, when you were talking just a little while ago about the judiciary, you know, they made some changes in the criminal code just this past session. Took away the whole old A, B, C, D system and changed them to 1 through 6, I believe. What that basically does is takes a lot of former felonies, changes them into what we call misdemeanors, or if you will, takes them out of the DOC, the Department of Corrections, and throws them into the lap of the counties now. So now the counties are going to have to basically provide room and board, if you will, for these inmates at the county jails. And
at the county's expense.
At the county's expense, absolutely right. So, and they have no idea what expense that's going to be, because they have no idea what the numbers are going to be. You know, you talked a few moments ago, it takes $25,000 to $30,000 a year to house an inmate. Well, it's about the same even in county jails as well. So, you know, if you add, you know, one more person who's going to stay there a year, that's $25,000 to $30,000 added to the budget of the county that's already strapped. And not to mention the fact of the passage bill of Senate Bill 1 back earlier this year, where it takes away some of the property taxes out of businesses. That money that went to the cities and counties and townships is now gone. Where's that money going to come from? No one seems to have an answer to that. And that's a problem, because, you know, our county still has to continue. We still have to have the sheriff's department. We still have to have city fire, city police. We still have to have township fire departments. We still have to have road maintenance in the city and county. So the expenses are still going to be there and most likely go up. However, the funding for these things is not going to be there. You know, it's going to cost Vanderbilt County alone several $1 million a year that we just simply cannot afford to lose.
You know, one source of funding that has been getting somewhat less and could plummet at any time is the casino over there.
Right.
You're getting more and more competition. Tropicana has said they would put somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million here in Evansville. Huge casino, hotels, a lot of nice stuff.
Right.
Governor Pence, though, I think has made it very clear he's not going for any land-based casinos.
Yeah,
if you're in the legislature, would you support a land-based casino, or would you be against that?
I absolutely would support it. You know, there's no reason not to be. You know, when you're, you know, when you're on the casino here in Evansville, you're basically at a stationary position anyway. You're not going out in the water anytime. You're in a stationary position. When you go to French Lick, they have basically a ditch dug around it.
A boat and a moat?
Exactly. And that is just ludicrous. I mean, it's just simply ludicrous. It's built on land, however, it's not considered a land-based casino. For the life of me, I can't figure that one out. But when you have a company who's willing to invest $200 million into a city that needs that pump in the arm, little shot of energy, that's a huge amount of money. And to snub them is absolutely ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. We need to be sure we're doing all we can to not only to bring in more money into the city, we need to make sure, you know, that $200 million is going to put a lot of people to work too. It's going to put a lot of construction workers to work. It's going to put a lot of skilled labor. Not to mention just the fact that the people who are going to be putting are going to be employed by putting a $200 million facility here. That's a lot of additional workers that we could be losing out on. And I hope that Governor Pence decides at some point to rethink that. Unfortunately, you know, he's been a busy man here lately, so I don't know if he's had much time to really give that into consideration.
Well, as you said, busy man, you're kind of scratching your chin, kind of laughing. You're talking about him running for president?
Well, that's obviously the rumors that are going around. He's been spending a lot of time outside of Indiana. He's been spending a lot of time with a lot of famous Republicans who are getting his name out there. He's been spending a lot of time, you know, courting his base, if you will. So yeah, I think that at some point you may hear an announcement from him, possibly. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't run around the same circles he does. But really, though, he's missing out on a really good opportunity here by spending so much time out of the state. You know, he was elected to do a job. He's only about halfway through his first term, and he's already talking about, you know, or thinking about, I guess, moving on to bigger and better things. I think Indiana is a bigger and better thing if he just stays with it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people from Indiana have looked about running for president in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I'm sure I'm going to leave some off the list, but you got Vance Harkey, Dan Quayle, Birch By, Evan By, Mitch Daniels, Richard Lugar. I'm sure I'm leaving off. So, long list. Sure. And last one that made it, I think, was Harrison. It's been a long time. Yeah. He only hung in there for about 30 days.
Right.
You know, real quick, we're getting really low on time, but the USI's budget is going to get cut by about 4.5%.
Right.
There's somewhere around a 2% inflation rate, and they're going to gain about 1% more in students. Mm-hmm. How can they possibly take or somewhere around a 6 to 7% budget cut?
It's going to be very difficult for them, obviously. You know, here again, we talk about the governor. You know, he crows all the time about this $2 billion surplus that's out there. However, USI and all the other state universities are being cut 4.5%, not to mention all the other state agencies, period, across the board.
Because you were talking about jobs earlier, but education's the basis of it.
Oh, right,
you know, we only
absolutely.
got just a little under a minute left. Could you just look the voters in the eye and tell them, why should you be the next representative from District 76?
Well, I'll try. Thank you very much, Mike. One thing that I do want to talk about real quickly is the voice of the voiceless. You know, again, I want to be that voice. I want to be your voice, though. I want to be your voice because you're lacking, and you don't have lobbyists out there. You want to make sure that your vote is counted, and your voice is heard. We have a legislature that's not doing that. We have a legislature that's spending way too much time on divisive social issues that aren't benefiting any Hoosier, that only serve to harm people. That's, to me, is ridiculous. We need to make sure that we are getting out there and helping people. We need to make sure we're getting people out there to work. We need to make sure that we're actually getting people the jobs that they need to be getting. So, Mike, again, thank you so much for your time.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you being here. Next week, we're going to have another guest, and we hope to see you then. Thank you.
This year in the Tri-State, 1 out of 8 people will be in an accident.
Would you know what to do?
Pain and suffering, lost time if you're working.
When you call Woods & Woods, you are not a statistic. You are our client, and we will fight to get the money you deserve.
If you're in an accident, call Woods & Woods if you want justice.
If you've been injured, call 1-800-544-2108.
Let Woods & Woods work for you. You don't owe us a dime unless we win your case.
You're watching memorable entertainment television. Me TV Tri-State.